What the Tech Africa podcast powered by Techno Nigeria. Stop at nothing.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of What the Tech Africa, brought to you by Africa Tech Radio. I'm your host, Jessica Fortunes. In today's episode, we'll be talking about growth strategies for tech startups. And to do that with me today in the studio is Abiola Bonuola, a tech PR consultant with over 8 years experience in media, marketing communications, core PR, and technology. She has successfully managed projects and worked with world biggest brands like Viacom, MTN Nigeria, Nigerian breweries, tech companies like Binomo, Secluded, and a lot more. I think that if I continue, we would not go out of here because her bio is packed. Hello, Abiola.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for joining. How are you today?
I'm great, although I would really love to be in my bed right now.
I know, right? Okay. So let's just go straight into it so that we can all get back to our beds.
Okay.
And so I'll start very quickly with what growth means. When you say growth for tech startups, what do you mean?
So for me, growth just generally means when a startup is just getting better day by day, can record success one way or the other. It doesn't necessarily have to be a unicorn success at first, but as long as they can just say that, they are achieving something day by day, that for me is growth for every startup. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty decent. But then when we think of it and we think of the fact that there's some level of growth that you need to reach before you can do certain things, doesn't that put pressure on startups? Because I know that if you don't reach certain way, you probably not get funds for the next level. And so as a growth person, what do you think about those, milestones trying to reach? What does it do for tech startups? Is it necessary to be?
So the milestones, basically, they're just, to me, they can be a bit grand. So because they are grand, a lot of people just confuse them to be special kind of milestones, but they are quite simple. For example, when startups say they are going for their seed rounds, they are going for their seed A round, seed B round, seed whatever alphabet round. To me, it's not really the growth yet. Getting money is not really the growth. The growth is when you can say that your customers are satisfied with what you're doing, and they feel comfortable with you and they trust you. That for me is growth, not necessarily the money that you're making or receiving from investors, basically. Yeah.
I like to think that money is important too, but
it is, but it's
not the only. It's not the only thing, right?
It's not really the only thing, because if you have money and you don't have your planning, your strategies in place, at the end of the day, the money will just go and you wouldn't be able to achieve what you want to achieve at the end.
And
so it's just about making sure that there's some other things are in place, like, making sure that you have the right people. First of all, you need a lawyer to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, you're legally okay. No government is going to come after you after a while, you're safe. Then after that, you also need to think about, okay, do I need a marketing department? Do I need a communication department? So that whatever it is that I'm saying to the public, to my target audience, whatever it is I'm saying, is it comfortable? Is it okay? So I don't give too much information at the same time. I'm not giving too little information. So that is just some of the things that you need in place as a startup.
Yeah, I agree with you, because in recent time, we've seen companies make big money, but then we've also seen it disappear just the same way because probably certain things were not in place.
Yeah.
But then talking about things that startups should have, when you measure growth metrics, what are the things you think they should be measuring?
Okay, so the first thing they should be measuring is how many users. Do they have a large number of users that are actually using the platform? Because if you don't have your customers, I don't know what it is that you're doing. Then another thing that startups need to have, they need to be very, very strategic. So another thing to say that, they are gotten to a level of growth is when they have strategies. It's obvious that they actually are planning, like they are thinking correctly about whatever it is that they're doing. So that is a measure of success. Then another thing that a startup needs to have, apart from, the users, they need to first also have like an app. A lot of startups, they say that, they can always have a website. The website will work, this one, that one. But for me, an app is just something that you need, because going to a website, typing the words or even searching for the startup online is not really, it's a long thing. An app is just easier. So that is how you can even easily measure your users, the people that exactly. So an app is very important for a startup. If you have an app, you're great. Yeah. Then another thing is you can say that you have an idea at the beginning, but later on you then realize that you need somebody else to drive you and push you through the idea. You can't do it alone. So you need somebody else. And because of that, you need a co-founder, somebody that is also as driven. And to get a co-founder can be a process, because you might not always get the right co-founder. You might not get the right person. But sometimes when you do get the right person, you realize that you're actually achieving growth. Then you also need somebody in product, somebody that is specialized in taking care of products. Not just you, because it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to have somebody that is specialized in making your product bloom. So that is another thing that you need. Then of course, you need a developer now. What is the point?
I think you probably have to have that first, in fact.
You need a developer. So somebody that is always, editing stuff about your app, updating, those kind of things. You need that to say that, okay, you've grown. And with time, the more you work on your startup, the more you get to employ more people that will be strategic to improving your startup. And before you know it, that is when you can start talking about investors. After investors, you can now start talking about, further growth. You can start saying you want to expand to a different market. You want to go to maybe Ghana. You want to go to Rwanda or Kenya or South Africa. And then from there, once you've expanded and you have different people working with you from different countries, then you look for more funding, of course. So that is what a lot of startups do. But for me, as I said, the process is just when they can celebrate that, okay, I've achieved something. Because sometimes the growth process might not just be the same regular, we're expanding. Sometimes the startup might just want to be in Nigeria alone, and they need to be able to build that strength in Nigeria, build the market, like own at least, let's say 50% of the market. That is when they can now say, they own some kind of part of the market. And then they then have to, make sure that their target audience are very, very comfortable with them. So part of the work that I do is we go to the government sometimes to talk to the government, the civil servants, people that are strategic in ensuring that the startups are comfortable, the policymakers. So we go to them, we talk to them. Okay, this is what you guys need to do to ensure that this startup is going to be comfortable. So that, don't worry, everybody's going to be fine at the end of the day. You explain to them what the startup is trying to do so that they don't feel some kind of pressure that this one is just coming out of nowhere. So it's part of what we do, And then apart from that, we also connect the startup to investors, different investors, international investors as well. Most of them are online. It's not that difficult to reach them. So, we connect them to the investors, and then they talk to them. They look at their metrics. Okay, so are you trying to say that between this time and this time, this is what the profit would be from this startup? So those are the kind of things that you can say is growth. It's just about picking different aspects of building, and then celebrating each step. So that is it.
Celebrating each step.
There's no particular rule to it. Yeah.
I agree with you that there's no one way to do stuff. And thank you very much for sharing that. So let's talk about the things startups do wrong when it comes to growth. Because I feel like, I know, right? Because I feel like when it comes to marketing, when it comes to growth, most startups wait until when they've maybe, built the product, done this, done that. And then probably marketing is at the last stage of things. And that itself might actually be an error. So they might have done a few things wrong, even up to that stage. So what do you think are the things they need to improve on? What do you think there are things they need to work on so that they can avoid some of the mistakes they make?
So, my first advice to any startup, any founder is first get a lawyer. First get a lawyer, because a lawyer will keep you safe. I also have a lawyer, even though, I'm into tech PR. So it's very important that you have a lawyer first. Then, you can now try to start, because getting marketing can be a bit expensive. You find yourself spending a lot of money trying to push your startup so that people can hear about it. So you might want to just get perhaps an in-house first, somebody that is in-house that is good in communication and copywriting. And then you get the person to first look for different strategies that would push the startup without necessarily spending so much at first. Then perhaps later on you can now say, oh, okay, I want to get an agency like me, or, and okay.
Like you.
So, an agency, and then we then assist your in-house person with bigger dreams and bigger ideas. So that's just the things, that's just it because marketing is expensive. You're thinking of you're thinking of adverts, you're thinking of like continuous newsletters all the time. All those things are expensive. Just to even do one newsletter, you have to spend money now. So,
but yeah, it's expensive, but it's also very necessary.
It is, but to me,
okay. At what point do you think is now time for them to start spending money on marketing and growth?
So perhaps they can start within the first year. So perhaps they've done like their app, they've done everything, right? They can then get an in-house person. That's my own advice, because a lot of times they don't really have the budget. So they can get an in-house person that they would be paying on a monthly basis, perhaps maybe after 6 months. Then that in-house person can work within the startup for that time. Then they can then get an agency, perhaps after a year, when they've gotten some kind of money, because agencies are expensive as well. You want to be able to pay your agency well so that they can do a good job for you. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much for mentioning that. So let's talk about, I know you talked about how, expensive, I'm thinking billboards are, all of these things are, and it makes sense. And because we're targeting a lot of smaller tech companies, the next question definitely would be, let's talk about social media. Let's talk about the internet. I feel like if you cannot do out of home, I guess that's what it's called.
Yes,
yeah, out of home advertising,
yeah.
right? You can probably do adverts on social media. So what place does social media, digital marketing have when you think of growth and marketing for tech startups?
So for social media, my advice would just be, you need to use some specific, I don't want to mention the names, but specific social media that would engage your target audience. So you need to know where they actually are, and then you target them and connect with them. Whatever it is that you're saying has to be something that they feel strongly about. That's where the empathy comes in. So that is the basic strategy. You don't necessarily have to start ads on social media to engage them at the beginning. I don't do that anyway, and I still get my clients. So those are the things that you can do. Engage them, connect with them on the more private and personal social media, like the whatever.
No, I think you can mention them.
Okay.
I think
okay. I'm just trying to be careful here, like WhatsApp, like Telegram. The messaging the private ones where you can actually create groups
and communities, right.
And then they can then talk about the issues. That's where you can even get your feedback from. Know whether your app is working well or not. So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think that's one of like the earliest things most startups actually do when they're starting. They form like small groups on on Telegram, WhatsApp, and then you kind of use their feedback. And then most times they actually are the ones that then go on Twitter or Instagram to say, oh, that product was really good. And that's how your marketing starts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with Abiola.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with Abiola. That's like something more people should think of doing. So thank you very much for sharing that. You've been very, very helpful. So I know that you talked a lot about agencies. Now let's talk about how important this is for in-house people. I know that you're on the agency side of things. Have you ever done in-house actually? Let me start with that.
I did it briefly.
Okay, and you went the other way?
Yes, I think
Any
I
reason
love
why?
the agency life. Well, there's more money.
Oh, wow. It's all about the money.
Yeah, and yeah, I think there's more money. That was one of the reasons.
Yes.
And I actually enjoyed, the agency life because it's really fast. You're doing so many things at the same time. I have that kind of brain. I like to think about things at the same time. So I needed that energy.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons why. Yeah.
Okay, because now I was going to ask, as important as it is to work with agencies, I want to believe that it's important to also like have your in-house people.
Yeah.
So how important do you think that is for like startup people, hiring, marketing, comms person?
It's 100% important because if you don't have an in-house person, even when you want to work with an agency, you might not really understand the reasons why the agency is doing this particular work or the line that they are going or the strategies that they are putting in place. You might not understand it and you might now start feeling like, are you sure these people are the right fit for me? Is this agency actually doing the work? Because you don't have an in-house person to explain to you, it's a bit difficult. An in-house person will give you the direction that you need. That's why you need to trust the person that is working with you in-house first before you trust the agency. That is my own opinion. But a lot of people will say, trust your agency first though, because...
But I agree with you. I feel like the in-house person actually serves as a bridge.
Yes.
Because the agency actually needs somebody to tell them about what's happening in the company.
Exactly.
And the CEO or the CTO is probably busy trying to solve something on the other end. So it just makes sense that there's somebody who's able to align both sides.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. And it's been great talking to you about this today. So before we wrap up, let's just talk. One advice you have for, startups when it comes to growth, one thing you think that every one of them should have at the back of their mind if they're intending to succeed.
My advice would be whatever idea that you come up with that is trying to solve a problem in the ecosystem, the first thing you should always think about is what are people really bothered about? What is their pain points? And that is how you are going to be able to solve any kind of problem, literally. And because of that, it's even easier for tech PR consultants, your comms person in-house to be able to sell your product, your idea faster. So that's it for me.
So that's basically make sure that you're actually solving a problem and not just say that you're solving a problem. I think somebody one day I saw a tweet or post that talked about it's easier to sell something that actually works or something that is useful.
It's easier, actually. It is. There are so many things that people come up with. Oh, we want to have a travel app, an app for travel. And you're like, okay, how many people are actually traveling? Mm-hmm. People that are traveling, do they actually even who are the people that are traveling? You need to think about that. Who can afford to travel at this time? Especially with the economy and everything. So you need to look at what will make people's lives better. That is what would sell faster than, the exotic and the
luxury, right?
Luxury. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been great talking to you, Abiola. And that's it on today's episode of What the Tech Africa, brought to you by Africa Tech Radio. Until next time, I remain your host, Jessica Fortunes. Bye.
Bye.
What the Tech Africa, an Africa Tech Radio podcast powered by Techno Nigeria. Stop at nothing.